Hello, Dayton, and welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint. We're so glad to see you again this week. We're here with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Tim, how are you doing this week, my friend?
Doing well, Spike. How about you?
Doing very well, except we're going to talk about market volatility. We saw a lot of that last year. I'm curious for your viewers out here, what's going to go on with the stock market volatility? What does that mean for those who are in retirement, for those who are about to get to retirement? And more specifically, what I really enjoy about your program is hearing how you help clients inside the office. Do you have any examples? How do you think risk gets in the way of how people can be and stay retired?
Well, I mean, the first thing, Spike, that I think we need to address is that risk means something different to every person out there right now that's watching the show. And so when we say the word risk, I mean, different things pop into people's minds. The ups, the downs, words like volatility or loss, and it fuels that fear of running out of money in retirement. And so it's not lost on us when we sit down with someone and they say that they're risk adverse or they don't mind risk, that we really have to kind of drill down on that. And we have a couple of tools that we use, and I think one of the best ways for people to be able to see risk demonstrated is to look at history. We use that program, Riskalyze, that you're familiar with.
Yes,
its algorithm won the Nobel Prize for economics, so they clearly know what they're doing. But the nice thing about that tool is that it doesn't talk about ups and downs in terms of percentages, and that's, us in the industry tend to talk about, it's up 10% or down 10%, and no one does that math. And so when they're able to see in actual dollar figures, if your $1 million portfolio went down 30%, that it's now worth $700,000, that's a much better visual for people to actually, kind of take it in and be like, I don't know if I'd be comfortable with that. I don't know if that's the level. And that's kind of where that risk conversation has to start is, we have to define not necessarily what people should own, but more importantly, what they shouldn't own, because that level of volatility is not comfortable for them.
Well, I mean, in any sort of education, trying to kind of break through that glass ceiling of learning and understanding, it's got to take some time. So with clients, every conversation's got to be a little bit different. Even between a husband and wife, we've got different definitions of what risk is.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we spend a lot of time, listening to where do each of those individuals feel comfortable. And it's not uncommon for, a husband to say, you know what, I don't mind risk and I'm over here. And the wife says, you know what, I don't like risk at all. And what we talk to them about is, if we can get each of you to move a little bit to where we have kind of a bigger overlap here, it's always a better scenario. We don't want things to go really, really well, and one spouse says to the other, man, I told you we should have taken more risk, we really missed out. Or the opposite of that conversation, which is our account's down a lot, I told you not to do that, and we create friction in the home for no reason.
Right. Well, let's start on one side of the risk spectrum.
Okay.
Those who go into retirement and they take too little risk. I understand. We've been saving this money, but a lot of folks think, well, now this is the time to head over to cash. Even low risk investment ideas like bank CDs, even though they haven't earned anything. When you're taking too little risk, how does that affect you in retirement?
Well, this comes into that inflation conversation where, we talk about that slow erosion over time of purchasing power. And if the interest rate that I'm earning on my retirement savings is lower than inflation, that's where I run into problems. And the bigger issue, and I think about, we had a client situation where everything they had was in savings, checking, and certificates of deposit, CDs. And the last few years we've had extremely low interest rates, and so on average they were only earning 1.5%, 2% maybe on their money. And of course they're using the income from those CDs to live on. And so not only is their growth not happening, in other words, the money that they have invested in these tools is staying the same every year. And so let's say that they have $100,000 in a CD. 10 years from now they still have $100,000 in a CD, but yet it's only worth $30, $40, $50,000 of what the
as it goes to purchasing power.
Correct.
Because as we know, the incredible inflation that we had last year, some of it's still holding on this year, and we don't know when it's going to come back down. So taking too little risk going into retirement can be a problem. What about the opposite? What about taking too much risk?
Well, I mean, let's give the viewers at home a solution for that, because we have not had that opportunity until really this year. In this particular instance of that client I was just talking about, we were able to, find them, market volatility, they wanted no part of that. And so they were able to take advantage of, I know we've been talking about these on the show the last few weeks, of MYGA, or essentially a fixed rate annuity, where it works very similar to a CD, but they were able to go from that 1% to 2% up to more 4% to 5%, which gave them not only an increase in income, but the additional interest that they earned, they were able to reinvest over time to help with the inflation
Right,
swirl.
and with the MYGA, I forgot about that, is that they're multi-year guaranteed annuity, but they're not your other versions of annuity, which are 10 or sometimes 15 or 20 year.
Right.
These are as short as what, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, typically, the better rates are 2-3 years or plus, and the longer you're willing to lock in a rate, the longer you get to, the higher the rate is. But it's not even been a conversation, because in years past, rates have been so low. But because of, the bad news is that interest rates are up because inflation is up. But the good news is that, people have an opportunity to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. As a financial planner with Axiom Planning and Wealth, it's not like you're trying to pitch your own version of solution. If someone is very conservative when it comes to their investments, you'll be able to stay like that. But you're also concerned about the flip side, making sure that they've got enough earnings over time.
Of course, and I think that, it's important to talk about, any of the things that we mentioned on the show are not necessarily the only solution that someone should gravitate to. So even if there is a comfort level there and say that, well, I like the fixed rate, we don't want to put all of our money in anything, right? We want to keep our plan in place, and that's where we have to have a plan to start with. If we don't have a plan, we don't know where our money is supposed to be put to work. We don't know what that money is supposed to do. We have to start with defining what is the money for. If it's for income, then certainly taking volatility out of the equation makes all the sense in the world. But if it's growth, that's a different conversation, because it's a different timeline.
Right. So in helping somebody out, are you willing to do a second opinion, a glance, kind of be that next doctor? So if somebody has a financial plan in place, or if they're completely doing it on their own, is this worthy time for you? Or if somebody's got a financial plan in place, just good luck with that, and hope it works out. Do you mind doing second opinions?
No, Spike, almost all of our conversations with prospective clients are second opinions. They're coming in with something. A lot of times that 3-ring binder of, here's our stuff. And we joke all the time that, people bring us in a box of puzzle pieces. And the puzzle pieces, they hand them to us. And the thing that we love to do is put those puzzle pieces together. To ask them, what is that picture supposed to look like once the puzzle is together? That's what we build. And that's what the retirement blueprint is all about, Spike.
Right. So, Tim, we've got to take a very short break. We're going to talk a little bit more about what it's like to get a second opinion. One of the things we're doing, though, for the viewers of the programs, we're offering for the first 10 callers for you to get started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint. We're broadcasting all around Dayton, though, so please call as soon as you can so you can get booked in for an appointment. Call 855-684-3485. Follow this next message as we talk about what a second opinion can mean to you.
We're passionate about making sure our clients live stress-free in retirement. We do that with the Retirement Blueprint. It's our trademark planning process designed to help you navigate to and through retirement. When you're nearing retirement, it's essential that you have a written plan and know exactly how that plan will work for you. Let us show you how 27 years of experience can make a difference in your plan.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton of Axiom Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Every week we talk about retirement planning solutions for you, Dayton. And we're talking about taking too little risk into retirement. This is very, very, very common. But every now and then you also see somebody taking too much risk going into retirement. What does that look like?
Well, we do, and a lot of times, in the client's defense, they had no idea that they were taking as much risk as they were. In fact, a lot of times that's why, kind of up front we ask, what is your risk level that you feel comfortable with? We try to define that. We try to really drill down to understand where they think they are, or at least what they feel comfortable with, because we want to be able to lay that over top of where they actually are and be able to show them kind of in black and white, this is exactly what your portfolio would look like in 2008 or in 2013 when things were good, so that they can kind of see those ranges and gauge, is what you said you were comfortable with what you actually have. Because most of the time, certainly we have a lot of folks out there that have kind of done it themselves and a lot of times done a very good job. But there's a difference when they're entering retirement, because it's a different level of risk and a different evaluation of that risk that comes into play when you start talking about that taking money out versus the putting money in. And they have been in that growth mode, that accumulation mode, that we're now transitioning to, withdrawals. And that's a different conversation than what we've seen in the past.
Well, in fact, there was a study that I was reading recently. I think it came literally from Yahoo Finance, and just saying I've retired recently, and a lot of the advice that was coming from this article was how you can very simply and easily do withdrawals from your 401k. How you can ask for it monthly, or maybe you could do it bi-weekly.
You can do it online.
You can do it online. But wait a second. What I want to ask here is, should we be leaving our money at that employer after we leave? Do we want to leave it in the 401k? You said a lot of people have done a great job, especially by the time they've come to your office. But that's accumulating.
Correct.
That's not drawing down on the assets and getting tax efficient. Is having a retirement account at your former work employer, is that a retirement plan?
Well, no, it's not a retirement plan. It's a retirement account. And, the short answer to your question, Spike, is it depends. Sometimes it is appropriate. But a lot of times, what's lost in that process is a couple of things. The first one is, if someone has recommended that you leave your plan there, it has to be part of a bigger plan. You need to actually have a written retirement plan in place to even be able to answer that question. The second thing is understanding that within a retirement plan through work, or even through the state, or through one of the self-directed programs that are offered through different jobs, is that the limitations of what you can do, what you can invest in, is just that. It's very limiting. There's a handful of options typically, and are those the options that you actually need now that you're transitioning from growing the money to producing income from the money? And we have seen, I think back, a few weeks ago, we had a client in, talking about risk and some of the things that we've been talking about on this episode, and they were taking a lot of risk, way more risk than really what even they felt comfortable with, but they had no idea. And so by being able to sit down with them, to really get to know them, to listen to, really where their risk tolerance was and where their portfolio should be, our wealth management team was able to basically make a fairly large adjustment. And interestingly enough, the solutions that they found for this client would not have been available inside of their 401k. And so it made a lot of sense for them, and it is a lot of times the case, to roll that over into an IRA. There's not a tax implication in doing so, and get them on the right track to make sure that what they've now saved and grown is in the right position to be able to actually produce income.
And what I also worry about is that while your 401k provider, there's often online tools, you can do your own calculations and so forth, but there isn't usually a lot of advice there. There isn't usually someone you pick up the phone to give you financial planning advice. I was talking with a colleague recently. This is a smart, hard-working person, and they're saying, look, I can only put $7,500 at my age into a Roth 401k, so what's the point? We said, wait a second. Let's do. Is something sticking out to you on? You can do a lot more in a Roth 401k, right?
Right.
We don't know what we don't know, and we don't have a financial advisor there. We don't have somebody guiding us through. You talk about this all the time, and so while they did a great job saving into the 401k, when we're moving into retirement, now it's time to get an advisor.
Well, and I would argue, Spike, that the time to get an advisor is now. I mean, before you end up with a problem. You know, we have so many situations that happen where the plan that was in place or the lack of plan that isn't in place is fixable because we have time to be able to fix it. We have that 10, 15 plus years that we can correct and kind of right the ship. But again, you don't know what you don't know. And you know, the online planning tools and some of these things are great tools, and they can give you an idea of kind of where you're heading, but they're not the same thing as having a retirement plan. And I would even say, you said little advice is given. I would say no advice is given.
I was letting the experts say, yeah,
there's
no advice there.
There's no advice given, and understand that, you know, most of these companies legally aren't really even allowed to give you advice. They're there to answer the phone, to answer a question about maybe a specific investment inside the plan. But when it comes to should I own that or not, or should I own something different, or how much should I be saving on a monthly basis, you're getting no advice. And so to be able to sit down and have a complimentary review with us makes all the sense in the world, because you don't have anything to lose. Your worst case scenario is that we tell you, you know what, you're doing everything right, everything is exactly the way you thought it was, and you don't have any problems. But when would you want to know if there was a problem? When would you want to know if, you know what, I'm not saving enough? I didn't think about inflation in my savings calculation. I didn't consider the tax ramifications in my decision in retirement planning. I don't actually have an estate plan in place. These are the things that we created the retirement blueprint for you. For the people that are watching this show right now, this is the time to act. This is the time to take the chance, pick up the phone, set up a complimentary review, have a cup of coffee with us, let us get to know you.
Right, and all they got to do is call the phone number right here. And I think what my friend was asking about in doing these Roths, or whether they should do that or not, even you know, through their working years, is trying to be tax efficient. And you don't mind addressing taxes as well with the retirement blueprint?
No, and so, you know, understand that I'm not always the guy when we're talking about some of these things. I didn't go to law school, but we have an estate planning attorney that did. I don't have my CPA, but we have a CPA in the office that does tax planning for retirement. I'm not even the wealth management guy. We have a team of people that do that. My expertise really is around the planning. That's why we have this show, because these are the topics that we talk about in the office every day.
Right. Thank you, Tim. We're going to take a very short break right now. If you're wondering how you can be as tax efficient as possible in retirement, stay tuned for the following message. And to get started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint for the first 10 callers, Dayton, just reach out to the phone number here or use the QR code down at the bottom of the screen. You've all been to restaurants lately. Open up your phone, go to the camera, point it at the QR code, click on it with your finger there, and it'll take you right over to the website. Or you can just call the phone number right now. 855-684-3485. More of the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton right after this.
Hi, I'm Tim Lofton, and for 27 years, we've been helping people just like you navigate to and through retirement with our trademark process, the Retirement Blueprint. Many of our clients are extremely concerned today with the increasing federal debt and a potential for a significant increase in taxes. If you share these or other retirement concerns, give us a call today for a no-obligation complimentary consultation. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. We're talking about retirement planning as we do every single week. Tim, a new report from LIMRA. $74 billion went into fixed annuity sales into the third quarter of last year. That was a record. We're still waiting for the end of year numbers for 2022, but the projections were it's going to be over $100 billion into fixed annuities. Is this the market and consumers running away from the market volatility of last year? Why do you think so many people are moving into this day, the A word that a lot of people tend
Right.
to avoid, record-breaking year in sales there? What's going on?
Well, I think they're being pushed there from fear. To start with, is that, oh my gosh, the markets have gone down, and it doesn't matter what I owned. It seemed like it went down a lot, and that scares me. And so I'm going to look for alternative solutions. But I think there's also a lot of people that are just looking at the simple increase in interest rates and the opportunity there, where maybe at the bank they're getting 1%, 2%, 3%, and they're saying, oh my gosh, I can get 4%, 5% on something that's still safe, that's still a secure opportunity for me, and make more money.
Yeah. So what do you think at Axum Planning and Wealth about the A word, about annuities? Is this part of the process? We've talked a little bit about MYGAs, which are shorter versions of, often offering a better percentage point, but we all have to be aware, right? Interest rates have gone up. So I also think in a world like this, where we're seeing fixed annuity sales being based on interest rates going up, is this in response a little bit to the better interest rates that are out there?
Without a doubt. I mean, I believe we probably will land somewhere around $100 billion in this year alone. And so when you start looking at those kinds of numbers and just the general consensus of group mentality, these are pretty intelligent people out there that are making this shift. And so I think they're recognizing that we have had kind of an anomaly where interest rates have gone up quickly, inflation has gone up quickly. We've already seen that drift back a little bit, but yet the rates are still holding steady. And I think people are recognizing that opportunity to maybe lock in that higher rate now, and the chance that interest rates start to go back down, they're able to have that higher interest rate going forward.
So Axum Planning and Wealth is larger than Tim Lofton himself as a financial advisor.
It's a lot larger than, and thank goodness, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a whole team. So do you have a department that looks at annuities? Do you have a department that looks at the investment strategies, looks at insurance, looks at estate planning? I mean, that's a lot of moving parts and pieces. And do you help evaluate what's best for each client, or is there kind of at Axum Planning and Wealth, this is our overall umbrella of strategy? Does it depend on the person, the family?
We have an overall umbrella of process, and that is the retirement blueprint. The retirement blueprint is what we actually use to create the custom retirement plan for each individual. And so each of those areas we look at for all clients, but what comes out of those conversations is different for every client. And we have people in place that have a level of expertise in each of those areas. We have an estate planning attorney, we have a CPA, we have a wealth management team, we have financial planning. And so we're looking at the big picture, and the plan that we put in place most of the time will tell us what monies need to go where. And because we're independent, which is a really big benefit these days, that the recommendations we're making on the investment is not the same as the name on our door. And that's one of those things, I guess, that we get frustrated a little bit with, is somebody will come in and they'll say, well, they told me this was the best thing. And it's like, well, it was the best thing that they had access to because their company manufactured that product, versus being able to use software and be able to put in and use any different product, get a listing of those products, and be able to pick the actual top performer.
I think that's the bigger distinction, and that's sometimes, and definitely not the viewer's fault. It's harder for people to understand that if you go to one of those large firms, we call it big box in the industry, you are usually hearing about ideologies and products that come from that firm only. And they're designed, and they all have similar kinds of names, whether it's S&P 500 or growth or whatever they might be, but they're usually coming from that firm. But as an independent firm of Axum, you have kind of the whole world, the whole menu. You're not just one restaurant menu. You've got everybody's restaurant menu.
We're DoorDash.
Yeah, you're DoorDash. We're the DoorDash of personal finance. I love that. So we're gonna get a T-shirt for that.
I think so. So we see this a lot, and a lot of times it's with the insurance companies as well, where they're just limited to that insurance company's toolbox, and so they have one or two types of investments in each of the different categories. The problem is a lot of times those are being sold under the idea of this is a financial plan and that we're a financial planning firm, and really all they're ending up with is an insurance product. And there's not really a financial advice being given other than that particular transaction.
Right. Tim, you know, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't see what's going on. But before we wrap up today's program, what are some of your bigger concerns for the rest of this year? Is it this slow-moving, mid-size recession that people are talking about? Are you worried about the constant of inflation? You know, maybe not coming down from 8 or 9, but holding more around a 4 or 5%? Because I mean, I think the biggest question on most people's minds watching the program is, am I going to run out of money in retirement? How do you address that throughout the rest of the year?
Well, you know, I think that when you look at the news and you watch, you know, what is kind of the buzzwords of inflation and, you know, potential of, you know, us running afoul with the economy and recession and some of those things, understand that all of that is a short-term view of a short part of your retirement process and your savings process. And so we're more interested in people having a plan than we are them making a bad decision. Listen, you know, 2022 is in rearview mirror. 2023 is in front of you. Let's not make the mistakes that we made in 2022 or let the news drive us to making a bad decision when there's a good opportunity. This is the time for us to be serious about retirement planning. Start off the new year right. Make a time to make a plan.
Right, and I know you're going to be offering that to the first 10 viewers out there right now, but the retirement blueprint, it's going to cover investments, taxes, estate planning, even healthcare choices. Am I leaving anything out before we wrap up?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, it is a comprehensive opportunity for you to sit down, put a plan together that's going to get you the most out of your retirement. And that's where your opportunity is now. It's today. Pick up that phone. Give us a call. Let us get to know you. Let us get to hear your story about you and your family and where you want to go. You can call us right now at 855-684-3485 or get out your cell phone. I know you have it there on the couch. Take a picture. Act today.
Tim, thank you so much. That's going to be all the time we have. Thank you, Dayton, for watching. Make sure you tune in next week.